Well, what's going on, gang? Welcome back to A Therapeutic Edge. Hey, it's very nice to have you here today. Forgive me if I sound a little rough. I've been pretty sick, but I think I'm getting better, although my voice sounds a little weird even to me. So know that it's not you, it's me. Anyway. I got something the other day that I thought was really cool, so I thought I'd share it with you. This, of course, is a Microtech Stitch. This is the manual version with their Ram-Lok. Now, this one is DLC and carbon fiber. I have a long history with these. I've had this one forever. This is, of course, the full auto version. I love this knife. I always have. I love the way it feels in hand. I love the way it cuts. It is not a super utilitarian, refined slicer. It's as much style as it is function, but the function is great. Now, I live in California, so carrying a big old beastly auto like this, it's not great. There are issues. So, I carry it sometimes. Don't do that if you live here. That's on you, but I do. Just the same, when they came out with the manual versions, I was really happy. In fact, their Ram-Lok versions of the Amphibian and their MSI that they came out with are three of my all-time favorite knives, no question. So I had the aluminum version of the Stitch for a long time, and then a while back now they came out with the titanium versions, and I'm a knife collector, and I love a good titanium knife. I just do. So I got rid of my aluminum versions and I picked up the titanium versions. Being a knife collector is weird. Bear with me. This Then a while back, I picked up a DLC version of one of my other all-time favorite knives, which is this. This is the SOCOM Bravo. This is one of their Reich collabs. Now, they're not doing that anymore, so these are getting ever harder to find. But I love this knife. I love it in the DLC. I thought, oh, that's cool. So recently when a friend of mine said, hey, I've got this. Do you want it? I said, yeah, I do. There are knives that are just worth owning more than one version of. I think the Stitch is one of those. I will say that I still prefer the automatic, and I'll show you why. They simplified the grind on the blade, and I'm sure they did that for a number of reasons, weight, cost savings, and all sorts of stuff, but I love that there is a sharpening choil on the full auto version. I love that there's this little finger stop right here to keep you from going forward onto the blade. On the manual versions, it's just one large choil, and that's cool. I mean, it does the job, but I like that better, and I wish they were doing that over on these. But anyway, these are hard to come by. These less so. These are about $500, which is a lot of money for a knife, except that they are American-made, all titanium. They're in that M390MK blade steel from Microtech. In the realm of full titanium, good steel, American-made knives, $500 is, unfortunately, sort of the average. You can get them for less, you can get them for more. I'm just saying, it's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money in comparison to other things. These are a little bit less than these, if you can find them. These are about $450 new. So let's take a look at what you get. You get their fluted carbon fiber, which just means it's got milling on it to give it a little bit of grip, which is really nice. It is considerably lighter than the titanium edition, and I love their DLC. Now, diamond-like carbon is, it's a coating. I've actually heard it described as a kind of PVD, but that's polyvinyl, I don't know. Here's what I do know. DLC adds toughness to the blade. Well, how does it do that? Well, it adds a very, very thin barrier between the material that you're cutting. Now, not on the sharpened edge, but everywhere else. It adds a little bit of a barrier between the edge between the knife blade and what you're cutting. And what I mean by that is that you're cutting through cardboard, and there's a staple. If I'm cutting this way and I run up against that staple, yeah, I'm going to risk chipping the blade, but also it's going to drag and I'm likely going to scratch the finish. Now, pause. I'm a knife collector. If you carry a knife every day and you're cutting up things and you don't, it's strictly a working tool, then none of this is going to matter to you, and that's awesome. I have nothing but respect for people who need a knife every day in their jobs. I don't. I carry a knife every day because I have since I was 12 or not, something like that, 10, 12, I don't know. It is a very useful tool to have on you at all times, but because it's not just a working tool, it's also something that I collect and care about at that level. I do care how long the blades last without scratches and all that stuff. So if that's not you, that's cool. It is me. So DLC adds an additional layer of protection, and I think it looks cool. Now, there are companies that paint their blades. You can get knives that basically have, it feels a lot like truck bed liner painted on them. A lot of 1095 fixed blades have got coatings on them designed to help with rust, but also they don't really care how well it slices. That stuff tends to have texture. Benchmade does a lot of their non-rust and stain resistant knives in coatings that have texture. And while that's not a big deal, if you are using this as a primary slicing tool, cutting through things all day long that are very thin or refined, resistance on the blade does matter. So DLC adds no resistance while adding a little bit of toughness. Maybe I'm not using the right word. I'm not a metallurgist. That's the way I think about it. And it looks cool. Painted blades, which you get on a lot of gas station knives, look cool when you get them, and then you cut open a box and you've scratched the paint. Then they look less cool. Good DLC adds to the knife, not just style, but a little bit of durability. Right? This, of course, this is the Evo 3.0. Full DLC. They DLC'd the titanium, the blade itself. I love this. And the reason I have this out is because I have a type. I like this handle shape, and I love this sort of blade shape. Now, you get a little more blade on the Evos, but these are $800 to $1,000. These are $400. This is M390. This is M390MK. Now, this is full titanium, but even if we bring this one back onto the table, this is full titanium. What I'm getting at is that if you have a style that you like, the best thing about this sort of overrun knife community, and I'll hang on a sec, is that if you like a style, more than one person is making something sort of like it. Not exactly. That would be cheating, and well, that does happen. It's not what I'm talking about. It's a feel. Now, like this knife. Anyway, sorry, my ramble's over. So the DLC stitch here, I keep saying full DLC, that's not true. Full DLC is when they DLC everything, including like the titanium handles. This is just a DLC blade on really nice carbon fiber scales. Now, I will point out that there are no liners. Well, there are in here that hold the Ram-Lok in place, but beyond that, they are linerless. Now, it's a nice thick slice of carbon fiber, but you can crack carbon fiber. I have never done it, but I've seen it done, so you're going to want to be thoughtful. Anyway, let's take a look at what you get. The specs are the same as every other stitch, but I'm going to go ahead and do them anyway. You come in just at 3 inches of cutting on what is essentially 3 3/4 inches of that M390MK. Grip area, and you always include the choil on these beautiful knives, starts just at the end of the cutting edge there, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half all the way to the end. There is tons of room to move around on this knife. The shape of it means that it sets into your palm very well. One nice advantage of not having the little sharpening choil is that if you hold your finger here, let's say you're doing, slices this way, your finger helps align the material that you're cutting so it's not going to slip off into this choil. If you hold it back here and cut, particularly draw cuts, you risk catching the material back here. So I tend to hold it this way, right? But it's a really locked-in grip. Now, these are, of course, built with a little bit of that, we'll call it tactical thinking in place. So they are very pokey if you needed them to be. I hope for you and me that never comes up as a thing that happens, but I mean, it's one of the uses of a knife. Although if you want something pokey, I recommend the Bravo. Anyway, let's take a look at the rest of the specs before we get too wilded out here. Tip to tail, we are coming in at 8.5 inches. Closed length is just at 5, which is a nice length for a full-size knife. These do eat up a lot of pocket. So you're looking at, 1 3/4 inches at the widest. There's no way to carry a stitch without knowing that it's in your pocket. It is not a low-key knife. Speaking of interesting knives, sorry, hang on, I want to share this with you guys. I saw recently that they are going to release, not this edition, they're going to release a Ram-Lok version of the SOCOM. Yeah, I'll have 2, thanks. Anyway, now carbon fiber, one of its real advantages is, first, it's very strong as a material, but it's also very light. So let's see how light it is. This one's had some love. I got it used, of course. Some of the black, now this is not DLC on their hardware, you can tell because it's scratched off a little bit. But you know what? While I prefer to put my own use wear on a knife, I'm not adverse to it. So I love this thing. All right, so this comes in at 5.6 ounces, which is not insignificant, but again, it's a really big knife. The Thai version, 7.3. So yeah, you'll know it's there. By way of example, the full auto edition, 6.3, 5.6. So the full aluminum scaled auto version is somewhere in between. We live in a really fascinating time for knives. 5-6 years ago, when I started collecting really and kind of opened the channel, knife companies did annual drops. And it was a big deal. A couple of times a year, usually around SHOT Show or Blade Show, and then one other time during the year, companies like Spyderco and Benchmade, ZT, Microtech would unload a catalog of all these knives. And because that was sort of the case, other companies, Kaiser, Riot, back then, Artisan, kind of got on board with that. And so there were these like cyclical drops, right? Did a couple of things. One, it allowed some time for excitement to build up around the new coming knives. 2, it allowed you to save up some money. And then, I don't know, it was organized. Now, there are probably 10 knives a month from all corners of the internet that interest me. It's impossible. Companies like We, who I love We knives, by the way, they drop knives so often that there's no time to build up interest or even excitement or anything over the knife that you just got, because in 2 weeks, something else will drop. I've heard over a Metal Complex the word saturated for the market comes up a lot. And, you guys that say it, you're not wrong. What it does mean is that you've got to refine your own tastes. If you chase everything, you end up appreciating nothing. I am a big consumer of knives. It's almost a problem. But I am looking forward to the Ram-Lok version of the SOCOM knife. I think that is going to be an excellent cutting tool. Anyway, final thoughts. Microtech has gone from being a company that made excellent automatic knives and once in a while producing a really nice manual knife to a company with the same catalog of excellent automatic tools. Stand by. You know, I mean, they still know what they're doing. I love the LUDT. This is such a good knife. Anyway, to a company that produces those, and now a whole bunch of, yes, expensive, but really well done manual knives. And the market exists for both. Automatic knives are cool. They just are. They're fun. I'll say it again. I've said it before. The LUDT, particularly the Gen 2, this is a Gen 3, is one of the sliciest knives I've ever had the pleasure of using. It's a laser. Anyway, they're autos, right? Stuff like this. Useful, functional, and cool. But there is a real market for manual knives from a legal perspective and just from a collector and interest perspective. And they've really decided to step in and do an amazing job bringing these cutting implements to market in a way that allows a bunch of new people to get them and use them. And I think that is fantastic. If you've been thinking about getting a Stitch and haven't yet, because, I mean, look, these are real money. I mean, these are 500 and some change. These are 400 and some change, whatever. It's a commitment. So if you've been thinking about it and you have watched my channel and anything I've ever said makes any sense to you, and maybe it hasn't, but if it has, know that these are, well, I don't really think knives are worth the money in that sense. They are. You're not going to be disappointed if you get one. If I had to pick one now that I've had both, and you guys know I love a full titanium knife, I would probably stick with the carbon fiber edition here. It is grippy, it is comfortable, it is cool looking, and it is considerably lighter than this. And I guess those are my final thoughts. If you've been thinking about a Stitch, go ahead and get one. If you can't, I get it. But if you can and you've been thinking about it and you just haven't done it yet, pick one up for yourself. I think you'll really like it. I know I enjoy them, clearly, and I appreciate your time today. Again, if I had to choose one, well, I mean, if I was going to keep one, it'd be the auto. I still love this thing, but of these two, if I was going to keep one, I would keep the carbon fiber edition just for the weight savings. And I think that the DLC looks cool, but again, that's up to you. Let me know what you think down in the comments. What do you think of Microtech's heavy lean into the manual knife market? Do they have any old models that you would like to see made? Let me know. Anyway, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you. Remember, gang, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. We'll see you next time.